hand. Those are obviously at the elite level. The UFC actually has been very supportive in terms of, well, not only helping in funding the study, but also in encouraging their fighters to participate when they're in town in Las Vegas. So, they come once a year, and during each visit, they get a series of tests. So they get an MRI scan each year. And we use kind of, the newest technologies to try to look at the MRI scan. They get a battery of cognitive tests of memory, processing speed, reaction time. They get surveys looking at their behavior, looking for depression, anxiety, impulsivity. We get a sample of their speech because we know, certainly at least in boxers, that change is not uncommon when people are accumulating injury. We get blood samples for them to look at genetics and also other markers in the blood that may, again, reflect brain injury. And then they get a neurological examination. So it started in 2011. We enrolled our first patients. And it will continue to go as long as we can. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Some of the fighters have gone 4 years now. The longer we can follow individuals, the more information we're going to get. And, as long as we have the support of basically the industry, the athletic commission, the major promoters. I think that this could be, the hope is it'll be a landmark study and be able to follow people over time. Well, I don't know about big, but we did demonstrate, and actually we published this, that, again, using the MRI techniques, you can actually, in some fighters, because we know not all fighters are affected, but in some fighters you can actually detect a change on MRI measures, and this is in volumes of different areas of the brain, in the connectivity of different areas of the brain, and that even matches up with their performance on some of the testing. So that is, those that show these changes also show changes on the clinical tests, and it seems to be related to exposure. So those that have more fights during that year are more likely, doesn't mean they're going to, but more likely than to have these MRI changes and the clinical changes. So, but again, we've only looked at it over a 1 year period. So the proof of this will be if we can see this as a consistent finding and as we follow fighters over time. We presented a couple recommendations. One is right now for licensure, at least in our state, the trigger for a comprehensive examination, that is where the fighters are required to do more, is based on age or number of rounds they fought. And when we looked at that in our group, it didn't seem to identify those that are impaired. I mean, age is important, but what we proposed is what we call a fight exposure score, which just takes into account a number of features. So age, number of professional fights, if you have available, you can put in education. And it's in some sense an algorithm. So, you put these factors in, and it will give you the likelihood or probability that the person may be impaired. And it's a kind of a more refined method to identify individuals who are at a higher risk of being impaired. It doesn't mean they are impaired. I mean, but it might, from the commission standpoint, it might be able to pick out those fighters that require further testing. So that was one recommendation. The other is to actually require an instrumented neurological test. Right now we're using an iPad-based test. It's called the C3 Logix. And so it has measures of memory, reaction time, speed of processing, balance, dynamic visual acuity. So a number of things that are involved in head trauma. But it can be done in 15 minutes on an iPad. And so what our recommendation would be at least to develop a pilot program where this testing would be required on all fighters prior to their fight in Nevada. So we would be able to record and follow individuals over time. And again, the idea would be that if a fighter who, for example, fought in Nevada in 2015, and he comes back in 2017, and now his score is much lower, that fighter would require, again, just further scrutiny or further testing. And then the third recommendation was one that I think hopefully will not engender too much controversy, and that's really to require trainers in Nevada who are seeking licensure, require them to at least do a educational module on head trauma and concussion. So at least the trainers and trainers, referees, seconds, people that are involved with the fighter, at least would have to have some training or education on head trauma and concussion. You have a range of attitudes. I think some people come here, particularly those that may be at a little lower level in their career, that come because they can get an MRI scan and blood tests that for free that they can use for licensure. And so it's not maybe so much that they're concerned about their brain health, but they're willing to participate, to get something out of it. On the other hand, I will have to say that there have been plenty of fighters who go through the study and actually come back year after year because nobody's forcing them, because they are concerned. They're concerned about their own health. They want to give back to the sport. So I think I think as you might expect, you see a kind of a